Sundown, gun down, all I need is one round. Sundown, gun down, then your body hit the ground. Sundown, gun down, all I need is one round. Sundown, gun down. Sundown, gun down, all I need is one round. Sundown, gun down, then your body hit
Sundown towns, a place black people across the U.S. have been told to avoid like the plague. Don't let the sun set on your back here, or else who knows what can happen. Some would rather pretend that they don't exist, burning and destroying evidence that these places thrive to begin with, while others can never forget the atrocities committed after dark.
DaBaby is strung up in a North Carolina sundown town, Henderson Hell. Chapter 1. Dream Home Rapper. DaBaby, whose real name is Jonathan Kirk, had been looking for a new home in his state of North Carolina for several months now. While in Europe on a tour during these months, he was heading back to the States with a smile on his face because his real estate agent had finally found a nice mansion that he had fallen in love with and paid for without even looking at in person. The primary reason why he settled on the 8-bedroom, 5-bath property is because the previous owner, a finance guy, added a discounted cut of $500,000 off of the listed price of $2.3 million due to being convicted for tax evasion and needing the mansion to be sold quickly so he could pay his attorney fees and restitution. The huge house, which was less than 3 hours from his hometown of Charlotte, was expansive and luxurious, with all the features the rapper could want: tennis courts, a pool, acres of land, and a recording studio space, as well as a home theater and a bowling alley, which he intended to turn into a small nightclub. Eager for the privacy and exclusivity it offered, being in a small house town, DaBaby decides to move right in as soon as his plane lands from Germany. Chapter 2. Settling in. DaBaby began settling into his new place, hiring a moving tractor-trailer company to haul his stuff from Charlotte up to Henderson, which was almost 3 hours north. A few of his closest friends from the streets kept mentioning something about a young black dude from the rack getting mysteriously hung in Henderson earlier that year, but DaBaby paid it no attention, having been in Europe since June and not focusing on American social media that much. After a week at his new spot, he decided to throw a small welcome party for friends and family from Charlotte who would enjoy the luxury and peace the property offered. However, he started noticing small bullshit occurring: lawn decorations moved, uninvited white people stopping by to gawk, and an unusual amount of attention from the local sheriff's department's deputies, all of them white. Chapter 3. The Racist Neighbor. A day before the big party, DaBaby met his neighbor, Bubba Ray Clark, a tall white man, around 6'3", in his 60s with deep-rooted ties to the community. When the tobacco-chewing man knocked on his door that afternoon, DaBaby quickly sensed hostility beneath fake-ass politeness. After 3 minutes of convo, Bubba Ray spat a glob of brown-colored saliva on the rapper's bushes before subtly asking him what kind of silly nigger nickname was DaBaby. One of the deputies, whom was Bubba Ray's cousin, had looked up Jonathan in their database and told Bubba Ray everything there was to know about him. Despite slightly laughing to indicate that he was just joking, DaBaby looked at him with malice in his eyes, and it only deepened when the man went on making comments about his kind and the type of people he brings around, insisting that the peace of the area be maintained. After the second time using the word nigger, DaBaby had had enough and pulled out a Glock 23 he kept on him at all times. "Cracker, get the fuck off my property, foe, I pop you old ass," he said menacingly, staring at his neighbor as he slowly retreated down his driveway.
This ain't Walmart, boy,"
Bubba Ray barked, reaching the end of his neighbor's driveway as he referenced the rapper's 2018 self-defense shooting in the pasta aisle of a Charlotte supercenter.
"Dadgummit, you had better watch yourself."
Chapter 4. Hostility Grows.
Quick commercial break, and please stop looking at my ass because you ain't getting none.
There may be rumors of me breaking up with Travis, but who cares about that? Right now, y'all need to smash the like button and subscribe button for my favorite YouTuber, GK David II. His stories are so crazy. We all know they're not real, but still the best shit on YouTube. They're like mini movies.
The next night, the tension escalated. DaBaby's friends and family, who had all started arriving that morning, paused when they heard a barrage of gunfire erupting from the neighboring property, and a complaint was called in from Bubba Ray, claiming that DaBaby's outdoor sound system was disrupting the neighborhood because the decibels were way past the legal limit of 80 decibels. DaBaby spoke with 2 of the local deputies who came out and promised to turn his music down. Determined not to let himself be pushed out of his own home, the rapper installed cameras, determined to protect his new dream home. Chapter 5. Escalation. Late one night, about 3 days later, DaBaby's security cameras caught 2 people entering his yard and leaving graffiti with racial slurs like porch monkey and go back to the city nigger all over 2 of his foreign cars parked in his driveway, a burgundy Rolls-Royce Cullinan and a sky blue Lamborghini. When the DaBaby came outside that day, he was irate enough to grab his guns and go blow Bubba Ray's top off, but he calmed himself down and reported the incident to the local police, who blatantly acted like the rapper was bothering them, in which he was because they had just pulled up to the new donut shop in town called Cop Food, which was giving all law enforcement free donuts for the week.
Look here, boy. We can't do shit about no vandalism because the people in the video wore masks. Now don't call us about no shit like this again or we're hauling your black ass in for false reporting.
One potbelly, hillbilly deputy said arrogantly. DaBaby considered moving but decided against it, not wanting to be forced out of a home he loved. Instead, he channeled his frustration into his music, recording tracks for a new album he was working on. Chapter 6. Finding Allies. DaBaby started hanging out around town, finding other locals who shared his frustrations with the town's old guard racism and supported his right to live there peacefully. They started connecting him to allies, including a lawyer who he befriended, who had lived in Henderson his entire life. Encouraged, DaBaby begins holding small gatherings, bringing in other artists and friends and reclaiming his space. Although Bubba Ray's hostility persisted, DaBaby's resilience started attracting positive attention, drawing the locals' eyes to the issue. Chapter 7. The Meeting. Bubba Ray parked his F-250 truck in front of the Henderson Sheriff's Department's headquarters and sauntered inside as if he were the sheriff.
I about had enough of that city nigger, Tom,
he said angrily, plopping down in a chair next to his cousin's desk. Deputy Thomas Clark, Bubba Ray's first cousin and senior deputy, spat a glob of chewing tobacco into an empty Coca-Cola bottle on his desk and nodded in agreement. The cousins spent the next 30 minutes discussing plans to get rid of the rapper, just like they had gotten rid of the young black Walmart truck driver from Chicago a few months ago.
What a coincidence,
Bubba muttered, pulling his tight white underwear out of his ass crack, most likely leaving feces stains in them from half wiping.
One nigger worked for Walmart and this other nigger killed another nigger in Walmart. Maybe we ought to blame Walmart.
The comedyless cousins chuckled as they wrapped up their evil machinating. Their plan was simple. Bubba Ray would cause another disturbance at the rapper's house, and when he called the police, Tom and a few of the guys would come out to answer the call. Upon arrival, they'll abduct the rapper and drag him over to Bubba's backyard where a nice thick oak tree would be waiting for him. Chapter 8. Breaking Point. Unbeknownst to the racist cousins, DaBaby had organized a charity concert in his own backyard, inviting fans and locals and raising money for racial justice organizations, making a bold stand against his neighbor and the intolerance he represented. Due to the mayor being invited as well, Bubba couldn't make another noise complaint and had to call Tom to postpone their little plans for that night. The charity concert brought out major media attention, putting Bubba's actions under a public microscope. The town splits between those who support DaBaby's right to live freely and those who side with Bubba Ray. Despite the tension, DaBaby's popularity and resilience start turning the tide, making Bubba Ray realize he couldn't intimidate him. Chapter 9. Is it over? DaBaby continued living in his comfy mansion, creating music in his spacious home studio, and becoming more active in local issues, using his experiences to highlight racism in rural America. Over time, the locals warmed up to him as he invested in the community, proving he was there to stay, but what the rapper didn't know was his neighbor Bubba Ray was the former leader of the Confederate White Knights of the KKK, one of the last Klan chapters still in existence. When he got on the phone with some of his old chapter member buddies spread out across the Carolinas, they all agreed that enough was enough. They would all come up to Henderson and join forces with him and Tom and mob the nigger's house by force. Chapter 10. The Invasion. Arriving home after doing a show at a club up in Washington, D.C., DaBaby pushed the thick groupie he'd brought back with him away from his groin area as she drunkenly kept trying to give him top, even though he had cream-pied her face twice, as he maneuvered his Rolls Royce up his driveway. His street instincts started kicking in, and he noticed something wasn't right as he pulled up and buttoned his jeans, hopping out of the $500,000 dream truck. As he strolled up to his front door, deciding to leave the drunk girl in the car to sleep it off, he heard noises from the side of his house.
Get that nigger, Jethro,
his neighbor yelled as a tall, stocky redneck leaped from behind a bush and grabbed his arms. Before the rapper, who was only 5'8", could reach for his weapon, tucked in the small of his back, 12 more men popped out of nowhere and surrounded him, covering his mouth with their unwashed, dick-beating hands so he wouldn't yell for help. DaBaby was immediately handcuffed hands and feet by Deputy Tom and dragged over to Bubba Ray's backyard, where 5 more Klansmen waited to join the festivities. For the next hour, they had fun with the rapper, stripping all of his clothes off and jokingly prodding his pecker, asking themselves why did niggers have such big Johnsons. One of the pranksters drank too much of the free whiskey Bubba Ray provided and suggested they all run a choo-choo train on the rapper as he squeezed one of DaBaby's bare butt cheeks, eliciting a muffled, angry yell out of the rapper, whom they had stuck a dirty, oily bandana in his mouth so he wouldn't scream and wake the other neighbors nearby. No one else there had rainbow tendencies, so he decided to run up in the Rat Boy by himself until Bubba Ray shoved him out of the way as he pulled down his trousers ready to mount. "All right, it's time to string this boy up, y'all." Bubba grinned as he began lifting DaBaby up off of the grassy ground near a huge oak tree, already fitted with a rope dangling from one of its thick branches. Several of the men started helping their host hoist the little rapper upright so he could fix the noose around his neck. After informing his guests about the history of the oak tree that his family had named the Nigger Eater and how an estimated 2,000 blacks had been strung up from the tree over a 240-year span, they all made a toast before Bubba Ray and Tom prepared to have the life choked out of another soul when 2 machine guns started sputtering from the tree line. Little did they know it, but DaBaby kept 2 AR-15s in back of the Rolls Royce, and when the drunken thought he'd brought back with him from the DMV awakened, she grabbed them and set forth on a rescue mission. The girl was 26-year-old Bianca Taylor, a mixed U.S. Army veteran who did her 4 years and got out because she made double the money stripping, with 0 the chances of dying on the job. While enlisted, she was top in her class in marksmanship, recon, and a host of other things that would have made her a staff sergeant in no time had she have hung in there. She spat the last traces of tequila and DaBaby's babies out of her mouth as she gripped the rifles and made her way towards the rapper's property line, opening fire, stick in each hand as she looked in horror as DaBaby stood, gagged with a rope around his neck as over a dozen white men laughed and giggled at him. Her aim was accurate, and she cut down half of the mob in a few short bursts. As the rest of the rednecks started scrambling, she began methodically picking off each one of them, beginning with the deputy who tried to return fire with his service weapon, which was no match for the powerful twin ARs. In the end, she had mowed down all except one of the men who was too quick and hopped into his blue F-150 before her bullets could reach him, but he wasn't so lucky, and after several rounds pierced the area where the truck's gas tank was, it exploded in a fiery ball that woke all the neighbors, who had begun calling law enforcement. After finding the handcuff keys and unloosing her date, the 2 scrambled off into his mansion so he could get dressed and prepare for law enforcement to arrive. 2 months after that horrific night, the remodeling work on the late Bubba Ray's home was finished. DaBaby had purchased the house and used it as a guest house, cutting down the infamous oak tree in the backyard so it wouldn't eat any more of his people.
Jethro, that mixed breed nigger bitch shot my pecker off, all 3 inches.